Hello and welcome everybody to today's attributed session brought to you by us here at Dream Data. As usual, I'm Stefan, and it's really nice of you to listen to me today. I have a guest today who's not just a B2B expert, but he's also a very good friend of mine. So there might be a few puns here and there that is a bit off the normal record. But the reason why I've asked Bo, who's a great friend of me, to join is that I've known Bo for 10, 15 years now, and I've seen him build successful companies several times. And I would say within the last half of those 10 years, it seems like there's a very specific recipe for how things are done, which I think is very interesting because I love finding the cheat codes for the computer game, any computer game, and finding out how to repeat stuff that grows companies. And Bo has found his method, basically running, I would say, mainly bootstrapped companies, which is also a little bit unusual for some of our guests that has been from highly funded companies or rather large companies. Bo has built companies from scratch quite often, and then having to fund them, or at least partly fund the companies himself as well. But that's my introduction, Bo. I think for those who've never heard about you before, like, how do you introduce your long CV nowadays?
Yeah, hey Stefan, and hey to all the listeners. Really nice intro, Stefan. I like the little animation you've made. I have my own podcast, and it's a little note that I made now. So right now I'm actually at far away from where I live. Normally, I'm visiting one of the companies that I recently acquired a part of, and it's actually Morning Score. So you can see the little cool logo in the background here, and the sum up of my resume, I guess, is I've always been an entrepreneur. As of the last couple of years, I've also been an acquirer of companies. I like to buy products and businesses and grow them. And I like to build companies and keep them for the rest of my life. I have sold a few companies. Also, I sold a consulting company that had somewhere around 30 employees. And I sold a software as a service company that had really fast growth in the clinic sector. We sold systems for clinics like therapists and psychotherapists and doctors and whatnot. And both of these companies were in the multiple millions. Yeah, and this is what I do. I'm a business person, and I've been looking forward to this talk. I think you coined the term the turtle method, Stefan.
Really?
I'm not
I didn't know.
sure, but I think you may have been the guy who came up with it.
That's super fun. And I think that what's interesting is that I know you started out as like an agency or consultancy owner, and then you at the same time launched your first SaaS company, EasyPractice. And it seems like you haven't started another consultancy company, but you've started several software as a service companies. So you've probably found some kind of love for that type of business.
Yeah, definitely. You want me to comment on this, or?
Yeah, I'd love to hear your kind of thoughts around it.
Yeah, so consulting is great. It's a good way to be an entrepreneur. And look, as I said in the intro, I've always been an entrepreneur. So if you want to dive into building a business, it's amazing to build a consulting company because you can start with just yourself and a laptop. But it's also a business that is really tough. I had that company for 16 years. I actually sold it last year, and I didn't work there for the last half decade myself, but the company was tough because you need to, when you have a lot of employees, you need to make sure you meet payroll every month, and every month you basically start from zero if you sell projects. Whereas in the B2B SaaS space, I really like the way you can grow your business in a calm and let's say predictable manner.
Mm-hmm.
And so much so that the turtle method, as I think you coined it, or it may have been someone else, I'm not fully sure, is actually the foundation that I try to base my business building on today. And it doesn't mean that you should be slow per default and try to slow things down. It just means that I believe in coming up with a process, trusting the process, and then moving forward with that process. And this is how I've been doing it for quite some time now. And obviously you could do this in a consulting business or in a brick and mortar company of some sort. because it's more a philosophical approach than it's a tactical approach, let's say. I do, however, mean that I've fallen in love with the subscription companies and software businesses. So software as a service is my clear passion, because it's so calm and it's so simple and it's so predictable. And if you manage to find ways of growth that come from some sort of predictable revenue, like paid advertisements or search engine optimization or something similar to this, then you can really run a calm company, and build it the slow way. And this is also why my holding company now that I run with two friends is called langsom.com. Langsom is the Danish term for slow. So the Danish listeners will perhaps laugh because it's perhaps a little silly to call your business slow, but we really believe in taking things slow.
I love that you've embraced it so much that it's the holding company is now called basically slow.com.
Yeah, but
I need to see if you can buy that domain as well.
Yeah, it was actually pretty expensive domain, langsom.com.
Okay.
But I think it sounds really cool and it has this Danish vibe to it. So I like it this way.
Yeah. If we scroll back a little bit to like methodology or total methodology, I guess there must have been quite the contrast of running a consultancy business where you get a large order and you get a good pile of money in, and then EasyPractice was like small subscriptions that companies were paying, and you would see that it would be maybe a year or 2 years before profitability would be reached, where kind of
several years.
Headcount versus the revenue in the consultancy business, you can quite quickly see that this can reach break even. So how, maybe the first question would be like, how did you reach a point of kind of patience for this business model where you can see now we added a customer that's another $100 a month, but it's very hard to like buy Danish labor for $100 a month.
Yeah.
So when did it kind of click that this could become like a real, very profitable business for you?
I don't think it was so much a click. It was more of a I need to change something in my life or I will die 20 years too early. So I think it was really stressful running the agency. It was actually
that's funny.
Many measures a quite successful agency. We were profitable for all 16 years, and I'm really proud about that actually. But for the, let's say, 10 years or so that I was the CEO, it was extremely stressful, and I had like ticks in my eyes and sleepless nights, and it was hard to take a vacation because I needed to be available for the customers. So actually I was sort of, the circumstances of running this company forced me into deciding to do things in a different way. So basically, I had the head of our production, or the head of development, let's say, was my good friend Emil, and he quit to start this company that eventually turned into EasyPractice. And he wanted to start a business of his own, and I was really fed up with this stress. So I figured I want to do something completely different. We need to have very small, very low price for the customers and thousands of customers so that we can just refund the customer if they complain. It was really important to me that we wanted to make sure that we were not depending on any specific customer. So we tried to, back then we actually made sort of a manifest, me and my friend, before we founded EasyPractice, where we said, how can we run this in a way where we don't lose our minds and become insane? And we agreed we need to be geographically independent. It was very hip back then. We need to have lots of small customers. We need to have a replicable, predictable way of getting these customers. And there may have been other things we decided. But basically this meant no phone number, no phone conversations with customers. The business could not be depending on me or my network or my friend's network, Emil's network. It needed to be organic growth through paid ads, or somehow people should have a problem they wanted to solve that they could solve with our software. And so that's the journey we started on, and it was very difficult for quite a while. But I had the agency, so I could take quite some big loans from the agency and channel that into EasyPractice, so that we had the cash to finance it. And we actually, I think the first month or so, this is many years ago,
Yeah.
we got perhaps, I don't know, 20 therapists, let's say, signing up on the free system that we made. And then next month it was perhaps 22 therapists and 23 and whatnot. So we could see the growth, and we introduced a paid plan that cost, let's say, $20 or something. And we could see very slow growth. So fairly quickly we realized if we just get enough debt, if we just loan enough money, then eventually this will make sense. And I think it took, I don't know, 4 or 5 years. It may have been faster, where we were just burning cash, but we could see our top line growing every single month. And we followed the strategy. We didn't call customers. We didn't use a phone. We didn't go to any meetings. We made sure it was fully organic and predictable, online based. And I felt completely in love with that business model because, as you know, Stefan, I've since made other businesses running this exact same model. And the business I'm visiting here today, Morningscore, is a very similar model. And these are the companies I like to acquire now, because if you can just find the financing, and I guess that's the secret sauce, one of the secret sauces, then it's just a matter of time.
Just write lean.
Sorry?
You just write lean or another cheat code and insert more cash into.
But you need to find product market fit.
Yeah, I wasn't actually, I hadn't connected the dots of that, the importance of it being very small customers, because then you can just kind of refund them, get out of my life, don't stress me. Yeah. That
actually means quite a lot. If you have large customers, then you also really need to listen to them, because if they pay like, let's say 50% of your monthly revenue, then you're screwed. Sorry. If they leave. So you will start changing your product roadmap because of what these customers require. And it's also really hard if they get pissed off. You need to, you may lose the business if you have to refund them.
Yeah.
So if you run an agency, come again, sorry?
They have a lot of leverage against you if they pay a large contract. Yeah.
Exactly. But if you have hundreds or thousands of small customers and they all pay the exact same price, then basically you can just tell your customer service team, your task here is to just, the way we said it was, drown these customers in love. So do whatever they want. If they need help with their fax machine, fix it. Just do whatever they want, because we just want to make sure they are extremely happy. If they need a refund, give them a refund. If they need a couple of free months, give them a couple of free months. Just do whatever, because then we can be the kind, no bullshit, amazing customer service company at a low cost, that is just competing in an ocean of people, of competitors, where they don't do it this way. And I think it's like this in many areas of business, basically.
Yeah, that's so interesting, Bo. Where to go from here? I think it's like, so have you ever published those, let's call them almost dogma, or like the rules you and Emil kind of came up with initially anywhere?
Yeah, we have published it actually a few times. We don't have like the manifest somewhere. We considered putting it on langsam.com.
Yeah.
But if the visitors visit langsam.com, they will see us describing this philosophy in there. We don't have the rules of this manifest, let's say, but it's a good idea to put it there, I think. But things obviously change, and this is, I don't know, 15 years ago we started doing things this way. It's still the same, basically. But
so a lot of our customers, I should say, listeners to this would be B2B marketers, and I'd love to kind of like shed some light in how you grow a business like your business. Some of our customers do very like elite account-based marketing, where they like can buy Michelin dinners for a few customers and then go treat them, and they will say yes because they got a nice dinner, or they took them to a golf resort, or whatever is necessary. But then there's like the opposite end of the spectrum here is, or you could do that as well, but the deficit between the cost and the revenue you get from the individual customer would be problematic if you want to arrive at a profitable state. So can you maybe say a little bit about the consequences of your choice of the type of customers you want, in terms of how you go to market and how you get people to become aware about the companies, and the cost you can actually allow yourself to spend on acquiring new customers?
So I believe that businesses go through stages of in their life cycle, let's say. And when you start a business, I actually believe it's important you do whatever it takes to get customers. And if that requires you to go and meet them or show up at conferences, that's fine. So it's not like I try to preach an ideology that forbids you to meet your customers. uh, I do, however, believe that if you want true scale, and you want the scalability, then it's important you have some rules in your business that you can follow. And what you are asking me about is what is the cost that comes with going mass market and taking small customers or many customers. And I actually believe that the primary cost of the Langsam approach, let's say, is
I mean more the consequence of like
yeah,
whatever you can charge people per month, whether it's $50 or $100 or even just
yeah.
$10 or $20.
I understand, and the consequence is a cost.
True.
Because you pay, let's say, with slow growth, especially early on in the business, if you are very religious about following this ideology that I follow, then it will be hard to close a lot of customers. So the direct consequence of you not going to a conference, of you not having a phone that you can call your customers with or taking meetings with them, the direct consequence is slower growth. But what I try to preach is this may be okay because you should really focus on the extremely long run. I do, however, also believe that when you start a business, you need to fairly fast figure out, does this business make sense? Can we even find customers? Do we have product market fit? Where should we go to find product market fit? So I just recently started a business where we sell systems for homeowners associations. It's anyhoa.com. And we actually take meetings with homeowners associations. I do myself as well.
Okay.
We take meetings with bookkeeping and administration companies to try and understand how do you work when you get a homeowners association as a customer. And we built relationships with these. We didn't do this very much with EasyPractice back in the day. And we were also lucky back then because we found Facebook to be extremely effective. We could basically buy customers on Facebook for peanuts. Whereas today it's not nearly as effective, so we need to try and build relationships. But the end goal for this journey with anyhoa.com is not to have meetings with administration businesses and all the homeowners associations we onboard. We need to get them to use our self-service. So when we take these meetings, we also try and tell them, you need to onboard yourself. We will gladly watch you do it, but this is a self-service business. And so what I'm trying to say is I also need to adjust the way I do things to the reality that I'm in. And I need to figure out what cost am I willing to pay, basically, which consequences am I willing to take on, how religious do I want to be with this approach. I also recently launched a company that sells uptime monitoring on pingpuffin.com. And with this company, it's such a small price per customer. We charge €19 per customer. There's also a free plan. And I cannot afford to take meetings with anyone because it's so cheap. So we're not taking meetings with anyone. This company just has to grow on its own, basically, with Google Ads and search engine optimization. I do run a lot of founder-led marketing where I try to post about it. And I use this built-in public approach quite a lot, where I share the ups and downs and how things are going and why we made the price decision we did and all this. And that helps quite a lot. But in the long run, the company needs to be able to carry itself because the price point is so low and it's such a red ocean to compete in. Whereas if you sell a system that costs, let's say, €100 a month, that's another place, actually. Then you actually can afford taking some more meetings, I guess. And if you sell something for €1,000 a month, then of course it's a completely different ballgame. Does that make sense, Stefan?
Absolutely. And and if you go to larger and larger customers, you'll get outside of your comfort zone for what your rules would allow. So yours, I just because I know what you're thinking as well, but to be explicit, then what costs are you allowed to have when you do marketing? I would love to hear kind of your thoughts about how you do this math of your let's say acquisition engine.
Yeah, so I'm a pretty simple person. I like to keep everything in a spreadsheet, and it needs to be a fairly simple spreadsheet. And you may be asking about this because it leads me to saying that attribution is difficult and Dream Data solves this. I don't know if that's where
No, not at all. Actually, it's
we
more
will get there, I think, actually.
no way at all. It was more the kind of, I know you like your spreadsheets and kind of it's a different way, like, it's a different way than like say like a brand marketer would think.
Yeah, I would love to comment on it actually, because I actually do have some thoughts on it.
Yeah. I would probably more describe you as a math marketer.
Yeah, math. That's a really nice.
I haven't actually said that before, but a math marketer.
You should note it down somewhere. Math marketing. That's really cool, actually. I never heard that term either. No, but what I like is to keep things extremely simple because I'm a simple person, and so I want to keep things in a spreadsheet that I can manage in my simple mind. So, for instance, with Pink Puffin, this uptime system that we recently launched in Langsam.com, we spent money on Google Ads now, and then I just put the amount of money we spend on the product. We started the first month with somewhere around €1,000. It's not a lot. And then we figure out, okay, how many leads do I buy from spending this €1,000? It's really basic. So, and I put this in a spreadsheet. The cost €1,000 in January. The output 50 leads, let's say, and then the amount of paying customers 0. We didn't have a paid plan in January, but then I have a cost per lead. Or for a cost per free customer, a customer acquisition cost, you could also call it. And then I just start month for month tracking this. And it's really difficult because attribution actually is really difficult. And I know you know a lot about this.
Yeah.
But I try when I launch a new product to keep it fairly simple so I can keep it in the spreadsheet and not launch too many marketing activities. It's just Google Ads in the beginning, for instance. And then I can track what is the cost if I spend €1,000 a month for, let's say, half a year or for 3 months, and then I'll be able to see, okay, we got this amount of leads for €1,000. If I turn it up to 1,500, what happens? And when I launch the paid plan, how many actually convert? And then I start getting figures, and then it's just an Excel, a spreadsheet game, basically. And that's where I think your term math marketing works really well, because then you can start figuring out what happens if I turn up a little bit the price, or I spend a little more on Google, or if I introduce Pinterest advertisements or Reddit or Meta advertisements or whatever. And this is the way I run businesses, even businesses with millions in revenue. But it does get a little more complicated when the companies grow, because you would at some point like to have more information about where did the customer actually come from. So attribution, and I'm not saying this because it's the Dream Data podcast. I'm saying this because I actually honestly believe that you should start fairly simple and then get the math going in your spreadsheet. But once you're at millions in revenue, you need to figure out a way to keep things simple. So you have simple KPIs you can use, but be more precise, because it matters more. 1% change matters quite a lot if you spend let's say €100,000 a month on ads. And it doesn't matter so much if you spend €1,000 a month. Does it make sense, Stefan?
Absolutely. So you just start with a simple cost per lead kind of measurement, and hopefully you try to keep that stable or sliding downwards or something like that. What about so in some software as a service businesses, they do these math pieces about a lifetime value versus the acquisition cost.
Yeah.
What do you normally what's your kind of rule of thumb for what's acceptable? I don't know if you want to express it a little bit different, but kind of what's the like acceptable acquisition cost in your model?
So I think my rule of thumb is that the price the lifetime value you make, or the lifetime revenue you make from a customer, should be 3 times the cost you pay for that customer, somewhere in that region. But when you launch a new business, or when I launch a new business or a new product, I'm willing to pay, let's say 10,000 euro for the first customer, even though I know I will only make 5,000 euro on that customer, because I need to get the customers that can provide me with some feedback. And then you should work in your business in the math, in the spreadsheet, so that you lower the acquisition cost or you raise the lifetime value, or both, preferably at the same time. And so I think we're back at the life cycle in a business again. But I think the general rule of thumb is that you should have a ratio of 3 or something like that.
Is that like a general SaaS rule that the acquisition cost should be like 1/3 of the lifetime value?
Yeah, something like that. I think there's also a challenge that if you have a low ratio and it takes a long time for you to make that money back, then you need quite a lot of cash to finance your business. Whereas if you make the money back fast, if you have a high ratio, then you don't need nearly as much debt financing, or you don't need to raise as much capital. However you do that, because the company will pretty fast be in a spot where you can launch prepaid plans of 1 year, for instance, and then you have enough capital basically if you make back your whole spend in less than that 1 year.
I really I like to spend time on these math pieces as well, because it is actually you can kind of be multi-dimensional as a business person. If you only do, let's say you only write blog posts, that's like one dimension. If you also do paid stuff, that's another dimension. If you understand the mathematical layers in terms of profit and your acquisition, then you have another layer to push. You can deliberately accept more cost, or you can do the opposite because it's not profitable. Or if you have a large bank account, you can be more aggressive for a period and so forth. So I really like that you spent time on just kind of diving into these math pieces. Like, I, as a founder, also know that we have a bank account. We need to fund some engineers. We need to fund some salespeople, but we also need to spend money on marketing to get new prospects to talk to. And that can't be too expensive.
Can I comment on it?
Yeah, absolutely, Bo.
Yeah, I feel like most people I talk to this about, I mean, many of our listeners may even have rage quit this session because it's so basic. But what I see, and I've been on the board of companies with millions and millions in revenue, and I've built such companies myself as well, just to try and give some credentials to this method. I know it's extremely basic and simple, but what I often see is that management or boards of companies or chief marketing officers overcomplicate things. So it becomes really hard. You lose track of the stuff, the activities you do in your business, and how they actually provide revenue, or how they provide an increased lifetime value of the customers. So I like to keep things extremely simple, as the listeners or the viewers may have understood now. And I remember in my agency and also in EasyPractice, before we sold that business, we used to say that all work that anyone does in the company needs to somehow relate to the mission of the business. And the mission cannot be some fluffy stuff. In my world, it needs to be very simple, sort of like either grow the amount of customers, make sure customers actually stay longer, or make the customers happier. Something like that. This is something you can actually measure and understand. And then you can ask all your employees, are you actually working? What you're doing today, does that actually ensure that we get more customers, that the customers stay longer, or that they love us even more? If no, then perhaps you should do something else.
Yeah.
I think if you find these very simple metrics, then you can put it in your spreadsheet, and then it's building a business is like playing a computer game, basically. And but most people I tell this stuff to when I've been invited to give a session for a board of directors or management or whatever. Most of them, they don't implement this stuff. They just say, okay, Bo, he was a really simple person, and I am. And then they go off and follow some crazy marketing plan that no one understands, and it's really hard to measure. So, yeah, I think that's important to mention.
I think it's really good, Bo, and I think I've taken that to heart. So I think about marketers should think about any marketing activity as this math piece. If we organize a Michelin dinner, the costs are these. Did we get pipeline and revenue out of the event, then it was a good event. Then we should do one more because it's clearly meeting our goals for our cost per acquisition. It's the same thing you do when you run your Google search ads. You pay something for them, it gives you some revenue, and if it comes out with numbers you like, you should do more of it.
Yeah. And the beauty of this approach is that if you track this month by month, then you will at some point be able to see a pattern, and then you can just extrapolate this pattern out in the future. And I'm not talking exponential growth. I don't really believe in exponential growth. I believe in linear growth. If you find the growth that is just linear, that's beauty, because then it's just a waiting game. Then you just need to find funds, and it's easy to find funds for that. And if the listeners are like, that's not easy, then call me. I would love to fund it. If you can find this linear growth, that's beautiful. And I think this is what you should chase. And that is the turtle approach, basically. And you can build companies you can sell for hundreds of millions this way. So it's not like this is only for small startups.
No. Yeah. I think it's also like, and then you need to know the math of how does your customer success metrics look like. How long do people stay customers?
Yeah.
What do they pay us? How many years? What's our gross revenue retention? What's our net revenue retention, and so forth? Because you can use these numbers to go more aggressive with your marketing if it makes sense.
Exactly. And you could take them and go to, if not the bank, then investors like myself or someone else. You know more about this than I do, Stefan. Fundraising, basically. And that's the beauty here.
Super nice. If we go to the marketing components, Bo, change chapters a little bit. So now when you know your math piece, how do you go about, so how many live SaaS businesses do you have right now? 6? Oh, so I was about to say 6, 7, but how many like SaaS businesses do you run at the moment?
I actually don't fully know how many it is, 6, 7, something like this. I may forget something. But I don't run them all.
I know.
Where I am at right now, Morningscore, I'm a co-owner of the business or an investor, let's say. And typically when I buy a company or when I acquire part of a company, I sit on the board. But I have like 5 products or something like that where I consider myself the one of the persons who should be running it. And then a bunch of companies where I've just invested or acquired part of the business, and there's already a team. But all of them follow this model, basically.
I'm very curious to hear kind of how do you go about finding like growth channels then for these businesses?
I try to look for products or businesses that I have a pretty good idea will succeed with paid advertisement. So that's Google ads, Meta ads, Pinterest, Reddit, and then search engine optimization. And if that doesn't work, then I don't think it's for me, really. Because that's my model.
I'd love to hear, if we just take them one by one, or just like spend a minute on each. So what do you use Google search for? Which that's what it is, right?
Yeah, all of them. So I have anyhow.com. This is the Homeowners Association's business. We basically launched Google Ads in the whole world, or the whole English-speaking world, when we launched anyhow.com, because we want to figure out where are the potential customers for us. And instead of spending a lot of money making a marketing analysis or hiring consultants, we figured, let's just market this stuff and see who buys it. Then we found out Canada is actually fairly similar to Denmark, and now we have paying customers in Canada on anyhow.com. And then we spent money there. And for Ping Puffin, which I already told you about, it's the same. Basically, we spent money marketing this in the English-speaking world, and then we see where do we get customers. Then I have another product called alunta.com, which is a financial system, let's say. It's a subscription engine that automatically takes your Stripe subscriptions or whatever you use and then book it in your financial system, because this is a hassle for a lot of companies. So you don't have to do this yourself, and it's also way cheaper than using Stripe billing. But this is very local in Denmark at the moment, because we integrate to local Danish financial systems such as Economic and Dineo and whatever they're called in Denmark. So right now we only spend money marketing this in Denmark, actually. And this is also a product that costs more than my usual products, because usually I like to market stuff at a price of around €20 a month. Alunta costs, I think it's €150 or something like that. and I may be forgetting some products. I also have like an authentication product where you authenticate or you verify your age for when you buy alcohol on web shops or tobacco. But it's the same. It's a self-service model. We put money in Google Ads, and then we see where did the customers come from. It's the same story for all of them.
I get how you determine the potential for Google search, because there's tools where you can kind of check how many people are searching for these things. But for something like Meta, how do you run tests there? I mean, it's not as explicit as this keyword has this amount of
so I don't do this stuff myself. I'm pretty lazy. I hire an agency or a freelancer or someone.
Yeah.
So what we do is we say to this agency or freelancer, we have this amount of money we want to spend on ads. What would you do if you were me? And then most of the time they come up with Google Ads or Meta ads.
Yeah.
And I don't know the technicalities of what they do inside Meta. What I know is I spend, let's say, €1,000 a month or €100,000 a month. And then they show me the results. I put them in my little spreadsheet, and then the mission has basically begun. We can start calculating month for month. So I'm not fully sure exactly how you set this stuff up in the Ads Manager and Meta. I think that's really confusing. But someone else does that. I just look at the outcome, basically. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. And then I guess that one of the determining factors must also be, if we take the old example of EasyPractice or homeowner associations, there's probably also some math where it doesn't work out if I can only find 1,000 homeowner associations in the world. You need to have an addressable market that is in the hundreds of thousands of
That's a good point. This is actually why we launched anyhower.com internationally. We have a Danish brand. The Danish viewers will understand it. It's called boligforeningsweb.dk. It's a very Danish term. So we launched it internationally because we realized if we want to use this method that we like to use, then we need to have way more of these homeowners associations than we can find in little Denmark. So that's a really good point. But I do like taking a single small market first and try and see if you can dominate that market. I think that's also the recipe of Peter Thiel. He talks a lot about finding small markets where you can be a big player, and I really like that. And then you can expand from there. And that's what I try to do we try to do with anyhower.com. Be very specific for this niche, and then perhaps later we can take more verticals or figure out if we should broaden it out somehow. That's also what we did with EasyPractice back in the day.
What's I haven't spent too much time thinking about that, but what's the upside of selecting a narrow market initially?
I think the good reason to select the narrow market is that it's very easy to become very valuable for a specific set of people. And I think that's the primary reason why you should do this. Find a very specific niche, become extremely valuable to this niche so that they like you, they recommend you, they give you feedback, and then you have an actual business that works, and then build on top of that later on.
Yeah.
Whereas if you try to target a really broad group, then if you manage to do it, that's great. But it's pretty rare that you can launch something that just does everything for everyone. So you need to, it's always a balance. You need to find a very small market, I believe, that you can try to dominate and then expand from there. And you can also start a few steps closer to be everything for everyone. But it's difficult if you just start being the everything platform.
I guess it's also you're looking for some sort of network effect because you want people to talk to each other, like the annual homeowner association conference, and then people can say, I use this tool for my homeowner association.
Yeah, it's the same. We just launched this ping puffin that I told you about, which is an uptime monitoring service. And uptime monitoring services, that's an extremely red ocean. There are so many of these systems, and it's really hard to figure out why even build a system like this. What should you target? Which group should you go for? Because if we become the $1 ping service, then there's hundreds of these, I would guess. And the reason we built Ping Puffin is because I personally hate these systems. I think they're really complicated. I didn't know what an ICMP ping was. I didn't know a lot about how TCP pings work and stuff. I just want to know if my website works.
Yeah.
I spend thousands of euro a month on Google Ads. I want to get notified if it fucks up the website.
Yeah.
So I made a really simple service, which is pingpuffin.com, that only caters to people who are stupid like myself,
Yeah.
and who just want a system that tells you, is the website down? Is it working? What's going on? So, and then I decided, okay, the very specific niche for Pingpuffin should be people like myself. It should be so simple your grandma could set it up, and that's what we try to focus on. So when people sign up for the system and tell us they want very advanced ping types, then we have to tell them we may build it in the future because we may expand from where we are now. But for now, we just want to be the simplest system because that's the target group we focus on. And this target group has been neglected. And thank you for asking about all this, so I get to talk about my product.
Yeah.
Sorry to you listeners, it sounds like I'm just advertising here, but obviously this is what's on top of mind for me at the moment.
I think there's a lot of marketing lessons in it, and you just use different terms than what we would say in marketing. Like we would probably talk about, we need to select a very specific ICP. So when we write messaging, that messaging would really resonate with this specific persona or this ICP. And
I'm from the countryside, Stefan. So
yeah.
I remember the first time I heard ICP, I was like, "What? Is it some sort of I don't know, STD?"
Yeah.
Or what are we
But
talking
it
about?
makes so much sense, because if you're narrow, then kind of people would know each other. The people you're writing for would know that these words make sense for me, and so forth. So I think there's so many advantages in being very specific initially.
Yeah, and it's also much easier, and you can keep things very simple this way. But I also admire the companies that start out on a huge journey and want to dominate the world from day one. But it's just, if you look at history, if you look at Facebook, for instance, they didn't start as Facebook. They started just as a local
one university or something like that. And
exactly. So and this is very often the story. Someone solves a problem they have themselves or locally in their school or whatever, and they grow from there organically. And then you can grow much faster later on, of course.
That's one of the things I didn't like about our early investor meetings, is that they want to hear about a huge market. but everything you do day to day has to be about a very specific market, and you need sometimes to translate between a large addressable market and just this very specific market that we're in right now.
But when I get pitch decks, and I get a lot of pitch decks because I'm also an investor, I often get these hockey stick exponential growth graphs and a huge addressable market in the slides they sent me, and I hate this. I'm like, you won't achieve it. I mean, it's stupid talking about this. Find someone who will pay your first invoice. That's step one.
Yeah.
And I think it's so naive, and I don't know why we have built this narrative around the tech business that you need to go for the exponential growth. If you can, that's fine. But I would much rather build a business that survives and thrives with linear growth.
Yeah.
And then you can, of course, go for, I mean, the winning. What's the best metaphor here? Knocking the ball out the park.
Home
Go
run.
for it if you can.
Okay, before I jump back to the turtle method, you just said Reddit a few times. And we're experimenting a little bit with it and failing massively, I would say. What's your experience with Reddit advertising at the moment?
Yeah, the same as what you just said.
It's so fucking annoying because it's such a big platform, but you just get flamed whenever you put anything up there.
I have noticed though that you can use Reddit. I mean, what I responded to was in terms of paid ads. I do use Reddit to make, I think, valuable posts about stuff, so that when people Google, for instance, uptime service reddit.com, when they search for that to find information about uptime systems, then
would people type in reddit.com and then the topic they want to find?
People do this.
I see.
So I will try and make posts, and they have to be really good, otherwise you'll be banned. Where I actually I made a post about pingpuffin.com where I wrote about the approach that I had taken. I shared the numbers. I shared some information about the design decisions in the system, and it took quite a while, but it's because if people look for Pingpuffin reviews specifically on Reddit or whatever, then I would like to try and own that brand. And I try and do this. I also did it with anyhoa.com. It's difficult because it takes quite a lot of work to make really good content, and it has to be pretty good content, because if you put spam on Reddit, they will just block you. And I think that's fine, actually. So
that's we're struggling with Reddit ads. We haven't tried it for 1.5 years now. We're trying a bit again, but it's hard.
Yeah, and I would actually, I prefer, instead of experimenting so much, I prefer just being patient, actually. If I have found a model that works, and it's very often Meta or Google, then I prefer just being more patient and say, okay, this actually works. We have self-service sales. Let's not start going to conferences now, because we can spend so much time and energy on this, feeling very busy and productive, but the same energy we spend on going to a conference, we could have just waited around, and Google Ads would do the trick for us instead. So that's very often the learning for me, and that's the approach we take. So that you should be good at saying no to stuff, because typically waiting is better. So
I think that's a perfect plug for. I wanted to just spend a little bit more time on talking about this moving fast versus moving slow. Why? What is the pitch for moving slow? Because and one of them would probably be that. Not to put words in your mouth, but it can be quite expensive to move fast, I guess.
I think you should never try to move slow. You shouldn't. If you have speed on your bike and you're driving really fast, you shouldn't pick up a stick and put it on your own front wheel to go slower. That's what I'm trying to say. There's no reason, if you're already moving fast, to stop the bike and brake, really. I do, however, believe that it's extremely hard to force speed. So if we stay with the bike metaphor and you're on top of a hill, perhaps you should just let it roll, and it will roll faster and faster and faster. And much of the stuff you do doesn't change that much anyway. Perhaps you can manage to be 1 year faster than you would have been, but you'd spend millions getting that one year faster over a 10-year period. That's very often what I see, that the businesses I've built and acquired and invested in, they move at a steady pace, and then you see other companies taking on huge amounts of venture capital or debt and spending lots of energy and time and the cash that they get on sales activities, going to conferences, flying around the world, and perhaps they move slightly faster, but it's not worth the time and energy, because let's say 5 years down the line, we will still be competitors, and we will be now faster with our model, and the snowball that we've been building has it's become so big now that the momentum is huge and the speed is extremely fast. Whereas the other people who got stuck in just spending a lot of cash on sales stuff, they never really came around to investing in this extremely high scale. So I'm okay with paying a speed cost in the low run, in the low term, let's say, because I know in the very long term, my strategy scales much better. So eventually I will snowball and outrun the others. Does that make sense?
No, it does, absolutely, Bo. And there's also like some financial mechanics involved here, where
of course
you're a patient investor, or a langsome investor. And other, like these VC funds, are like, let's do 20 or 40 investments, and we just need a couple of them to work out. So we just push everybody to spend the money super fast, right?
Yeah, and that's the way it is, and that's fine. I mean, we live in a world where we have space for both approaches, so that's completely fine.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay.
But if I can give one advice to the people listening,
absolutely.
If they think it's just a little interesting what I'm saying, then I think you should look at your activities and really figure out what's carrying the bulk here. And perhaps we should just be a company that focuses on the 20% of tasks that actually generate 80% of the revenue, and then fuck the rest of the tasks, because we spend so much money and time and energy and headaches on it that it doesn't matter. And I think that's really, really important, actually, if you want to build huge scale. Of course, you should be experimenting. That's fine, but you can become really successful if you just manage to find that 20% that actually carries the load anyway. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it does. I think, and it's such an easy thing to forget, to have this cynical view of your activities, because like everybody's busy and everybody looks productive and everybody writes stuff that sounds valuable. But if you don't view things through like like an experimental lens, where we think about what's this activity,
Mhm.
and can we actually explain, and can we see with data that this activity is like a net positive thing to spend time on in our company,
Yeah.
then you just risk a lot of resources going into stuff that doesn't really move the needle.
And then we're back at what I started saying in the beginning of this conversation, which is boards of companies. I think they should spend way more time finding, let's say, 3 KPIs or 5 even, or whatever you think is suitable, but very few. It should be very few. And these KPIs or numbers or indicators, they should be extremely simple to understand for everyone working in your company. So spend less time talking about values and visions and missions. Most people don't understand the difference anyway, and spend more time figuring out, okay, what are the things we do in this business? And it could be everyone in this business should every day understand how the work they do relate to either getting more customers, keeping more customers, staying with us, or making them more happy. And I'm sure the listeners here, they can find more relevant KPIs for their business, but these 3, they make a lot of sense for a lot of businesses. And I'm also sure that in many companies, if you ask some person, they will not know in that company how what they do actually ensures that the company gets more customers, or keeps more of the current customers, or make them more happy. And I think that's fairly important. And the problem starts in the board of directors or leadership that come up with all kinds of complicated things, and then you can have people just moving paper back and forth and not really understanding how does this impact my company, and you burn so much cash doing this. That's the way I see it.
Makes 100% sense, Bo. Okay, so if we are to kind of slowly approach an end here, if you have to kind of like summarize like the the turtle methodology in your world,
Yeah.
what can you just spend a little 1 minute or 2 minutes like summarizing the approach you take with this methodology?
The SEAL teams, they say slow is smooth, smooth is fast. And basically, I'm sure everyone knows the story about the tortoise and the hare, and I think that sums it up in itself. That if you have a real long-term view, then the tortoise wins in the end because it doesn't get distracted. And if I can add just one final anecdote, that's how I often see it myself, and this is how I think about it when I'm at home in my house. I have my office on the 2nd floor, and I think about this almost every day when I'm there. When I go down from my office to my kitchen in the ground floor to pick up coffee, I sometimes have my coffee in one hand, and then I balance a laptop or some papers and some stuff in the other hand, and then I try and run up the stairs because I really want to get to work. I love my job. And what happens is I spill coffee everywhere. This has happened quite a lot of times. And then I think about the SEAL teams, slow is smooth, smooth is fast. And I think about the tortoise and the hare. And I think about how my company is called Langsam.com. And it's the exact thing that I'm doing when I run up the stairs, balancing all this crap. If I could just take the coffee, go slow up the stairs with my computer in the one hand and my coffee in the other hand, I would reach my goal without spilling coffee everywhere and spend less time.
Yeah.
Because so often the slow route is the fastest route.
Yeah.
I think that's the
That's
final.
so funny, Bo. That's super good, man. Really good life advice as well.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bo. If people wanna like follow along this this slow journey, where do you wanna kind of direct their attention?
So I'm very active on LinkedIn. They can find me on LinkedIn. I think my name is somewhere here in the system. And they can go to langsam.com. They can also go to bandeja.org, bandeja.org. That's my own private website for my own investment business. I've also listed my Instagram and all kinds of stuff there, but LinkedIn is where I'm primarily active. And Danish listeners, they should find me on Spotify or YouTube, where I have my podcast called SaaS Købmænd.
Thank you, Bo. And something I heard you say on your podcast was that if you either disagree or very much agree with what Bo has said here, go and comment on YouTube or on LinkedIn. We would appreciate that. And subscribe to our podcast, obviously, as well. So everybody, thanks for listening. And Bo, specifically thanks to you for spending the time and explaining this this methodology to us.
Thank you.
Bye.